Yo, what's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our prop and betting stream for round 2 of the Open Championship. Gonna get you guys ready for all of your exposure tomorrow with a look at the stat averages from round number 1, the weather, how that'll impact Friday's play, also some plays on Underdog and Prize Picks, and the matchups on the sports books you might want to consider adding to your portfolio yourself. But anything on top of that, don't be shy at all to ask in the live chat. But even if you don't have any questions, also don't be shy to say hi. It looks like we got Joseph down there, always early to the occasion. We also got Rushing Yard as well. And like the guy said, like up the stream if you guys haven't already. Let's pump up those numbers, get this out there to even more people. And any sort of bets, exposure that you guys are curious about, that can be on pretty much any site that's out there. It doesn't just have to be Prize Picks, Underdog, or Draftkings. You can touch on it here on this live stream. And even if you weren't able to make the DFS live stream that we did on Ship It Nation earlier, you can hit me up with some DFS questions as well. But other than that, smash the like button and let's get this thing rocking. So the first thing we're going to go through would be the stat averages, which for today played about +2. It played difficult. It played harder than 2019, which was to be expected with all the wind that they got. And in fact, I thought it would play between +1.5 and +2. So it played towards the harder end of that spectrum. So birdie average dropped from 2.99 per round to 2.57 today. It also went from a 3.7 bogey average to over 4.2 per round. So pretty much every average was impacted, and especially the fairway average. It went from about 8 per round to only 6.59. And then the green average went the whole way down from, I think it was 11.36 to almost an entire green lower at 10.37. So every category, there was nothing spared compared to 2019. Tomorrow, though, doesn't look as drastic with the conditions. So not to get too far ahead of ourselves, I do think that these averages are going to improve a little bit across the board. So probably an easier scoring average, slightly higher birdie average, lower bogey percentage, you get it across the board there. So the reason for that would be that the winds don't look as consistent. So while today it was closer to 15 miles an hour for most of the day, tomorrow it's closer to 10 to 12 miles an hour in the morning, and then it dies off in the afternoon. And while they all calling for some rain once again, that's going to be the thing for the entire week. It looks like all 4 days there's a good chance of rain. It's not going to be as significant of wind. So it's not even just this ECM model that we have here. The GFS has a little bit of morning wind and then it dies off. Medio Blue model, the same thing, actually with less rain in the afternoon. Icon model looks just like the first two that we looked like. And UKV also doesn't have that much rain going on. And if it's going to be no rain and calmer conditions, I mean, you could be talking about half a stroke over par, even closer to an even par scoring average. And the reason why I say that is if you look at the 2019 scoring averages, on rainy, windy days, it played +2. That was rounds 1 and 2. Rounds 2 and 3, it played to about an even par scoring average. So it's not completely calm, right? We still have some wind in the first half of the day. So I think the scoring average is going to be closer to +1, maybe +1.5. That's the range that I'm the most confident giving for tomorrow. But it wouldn't surprise me that if in the morning it played to maybe 1.5 over, +1.25. But in the afternoon, when it calms down, it could play to +1 or even an easier scoring average. So birdie average could be around 2.75 per round. Bogey average probably going to be 4 or even just a little bit lower than 4 or worse per round. Fairway average will probably go up. My guess would be about 7 fairways per round. Maybe not quite as high. You know, it's firmer and faster this year. I think that's why the fairway rate was so much lower, a whole 1.5 lower than the last time we played here. Green average, though, I'll split it down the middle. I'd say it's probably going to be about like 10.85, right in between where it was for this year and, of course, for the last time we played at Royal Portrush. So that's the stat averages. That's the idea for the weather. I would say that in the morning with the slightly harder conditions, and if you were looking to take overs on bogeys, overs on strokes, or unders on birdies, you would do that for your morning guys, right? Any sort of fades, stances against a player for somebody not to play well, you would want it to be when the conditions are the worst. And on the flip side, if it is going to be slightly easier in the afternoon, then when you take an over on birdies or like an under on strokes, you'd want to do that for the later tee time. So when we take a look at the Underdog and Prize Pick sports, we'll be incorporating that aspect. And for DFS, the further and further we've gone into this evening, the more and more I've looked at those PM wave players. numbers. It was a little sketchier with especially the ECM in this GFS model that we're calling for a whole bunch of rain. That would kind of throw it off a bit. But if it's not going to be a consistent rain, if it's maybe just a drizzle that comes through, those PM guys are going to be playing on a half a stroke to maybe even a stroke easier golf course. So if you're playing DFS, maybe you didn't catch the first stream we did earlier, definitely take a look at some of those PM guys. I would use it to break ties at the very least. We're also going to look at pin locations, and because we do have an idea of how the golf course played today, we're going to have a little bit more insights on how each of these pin locations sets up. So we're going to go hole by hole. We don't have the sloping on the greens that we normally go through, which is unfortunate because the PGA Tour does give us a whole bunch of information, but we're going to do our best to break down how these will play. So we'll zoom in, we'll try and see the contours that we can. And let me catch up on chat because it seems like we got a few of you more down there. We got Christian going on. What's going on, Matt? You said that Fox under and fairways came through. Yeah, overall, I can't complain about today. I ended up making 4.74 units of profit. Our slips from yesterday, though, were about a break even. So I wish we would have done better for the live stream stuff that we went through. But you were right? The fairways were way too high. We took advantage of that in a few cases. Greens, too. Those greens were way too high. I mean, the average was like 10.3. So the course read, I feel really good about for round number one. I mean, overall results, I can't feel bad about making 5 units. I just wish we could have hit the 5X banger here for the live stream, right? Those are always the nice ones. That 10X slip we entered obviously didn't cash for us. If it would have, that would have been a real nice touch. We got a lot of golf to work with, though. So let's see if we can cash one of those big ones over the next few days. He said you couldn't help yourself but to run Rahm, Rory, and Fitz, Hovland, and Scotty for an under on strokes. That's a crazy slip, man. You got to let me know the payout on that sort of thing. But I do think that with the PM wave players in particular, so like Rahm, he's going off later. I think Fitzpatrick is also a later tee time. Scotty as well should be on the best side of those tee times. Those guys I could definitely get behind for that sort of thing. Do I like the guys teeing off midday or later for under on strokes? It depends on the line of line night. We're going to be taking a look at the board here together. I actually haven't had a chance to go through it completely. So it'll depend on where they have everyone priced. You said maybe higher on greens too and over on birdies for the afternoon, guys. Yeah, I think in general, man, you're spot on with what you're trying to do. Right, your fades you do early, and then you would look for the positive stance plays later. We'll have to see what kind of value we can find. I'm sure there'll be something that we can mix in, but in general, you're spot on with that strategy. What was it I said about waiting to use that 30% boost? You thought it was something? Yeah, you want to wait to use it until we had more slips to enter, Christian. So, I was saying, right, don't enter it when we don't have more props to enter. Today, though, is a good spot to use it. So on your favorite slip that you see today, don't be shy at all to mix that one in. He said maybe a higher on greens and birdies. Yeah. I agree with that, man. And by the way, you only have to ask questions once. We'll see them. He said, what am I attacking for today? Strokes, birdies, etc. I haven't entered anything myself yet, so we're going to have to take a look at the board. And he said, hey, Luke, thoughts on Fowler and Harris English for the over on birdies? They seem free. Well, there's nothing free in golf betting. I'm assuming that they're at 3 birdies or something like that. So yeah, Ricky's at 3. What's English? I'm assuming the same number, right? Let's see. So yeah, he's going off midday, and he's also at that 3 birdie mark. I don't think they're free by any means. I mean, average today was 2.57 per round. If you think the average is going to go up to 2.75, that means that to tie that projection, right, not even to go over it, they'd have to have a slightly above average day, which I'm okay with projecting in both cases. Harris has had very solid form heading into this kind of event. In fact, I think he's gained strokes in 7 or 8 straight events. He's been on a made cut streak as well. So I understand why he would be a target of yours. But yeah, definitely not free at that sort of number. If he was at a 2.5 or maybe a 2 projection, we could say that sort of thing. But at 3, it's a pretty reasonable projection, I would say. And that's on both cases there. Fowler also, he's been making some cuts. He's been posting some top 25s. He also plays well at the Open. So in both cases, I'm okay with the push equity at 3, but I would give you some pushback. I don't think that they're drastically off lines or anything like that. He said Rose over 7.5 fairways has plus money on Underdog. He hit 10 today and played pretty cautiously. Do I think that's solid? So yeah, 7.5 fairways. I think the average will go up, and it really depended on the type of player you were looking at. For example, if we go to this leaderboard, And I want to go through the pin locations, which I'll get to here in a second. Joaquin Niemann made me sweat on his fairway line, and it's not because he's an accurate driver. I mean, the guy is like loses 10, 15% on average to the field with driving accuracy. So he's dog shit at hitting fairways. I mean, I'll just call a spade at this point. But when you click on their off the tee profile, I really like that they do this at the Open. You can see how many drivers they hit. And Joaquin Niemann only hit driver 42.9% of the time. That's less than half the time. That's out of the 14 tee shots. He hit driver 6 times. So 8 times he was hitting a 3-wood, probably a driving iron for Joaquin. That's the kind of shot that he prefers off the tee. But players like Justin Rose, I'm assuming that he also had a low driver rate. Those are the kind of players that you want to take for overs on fairways. Whereas like the complete opposite of that sort of thing would be Scotty Scheffler, who Scotty still shot -3, like good shit, good for him and whatnot. But I'm assuming his driver rate was higher. Yeah. In fact, right, he hit driver 57.1% of the time. So like he might be a better under on fairways. And he hit like, I think it was like 30-40% of his fairways today. Let's find another good example of that. So in fact, you were looking at who in particular? We're looking at Justin Rose. Let's see exactly what he decided to do and see if the cautious approach is backed up with the stats. So off the tee, he hit driver 71% of the time. So he did hit a bunch of fairways. He hit the fairway 71% of the time as well. I just think that that's a little sketchy, right? Somebody that's hitting driver a lot more than other players is going to have some more variance off the tee. I think the plus money aspect makes it mighty fine tempting. Like if it was even money, I would be against it, right? I'd say like, oh, he's hitting too many drivers. The plus money is the saving grace. I don't think it's the worst bet, at least to take that over there. But keep that in mind that he is hitting driver a little bit more than other players, which is slightly problematic for that sort of thing. He said Underdog has a 50% boost and it can be used for a golf slip in round 2. It has a $25 max though. Yeah, take advantage of those, man. The one thing I'll say about those promotions, it's not really something I ever cover on these live streams because I think taking advantage of promotion should always be done. Every promotion you get and that you get access to, you should be maxing it out. That doesn't mean that you should be entering it with just anything. Like obviously still try to find value and find plus EV plays if you can to mix in with all of your promos. But the reason why I don't cover it is it's, kind of trivial, right? Like if it's a boost, you get a slightly better payout. Great, right? You want to boost a slip that already had a good payout. I think what the sports books do and the reason why they give out so many promos is it helps with customer retention. It helps with getting people betting that weren't betting on the site before. Like maybe they took a break and they dangle that promo and they get them back. But even more so than that, this is at least what I've noticed. It was an issue for me when I was newer at betting is I would get a promotion and I would just go, okay, let me just find something to enter with it, right? And you're maybe not as prudent with what you try and pair up with it. You don't try and find things as tangible value because you go, oh, the value's on the promotion, right? Like I'm just trying to take advantage of that. You can still do that by being a disciplined bettor. So my opinion on like those boosts, free squares, especially those are things I'll never really incorporate onto content here because you always want to max those out, but just play them with stuff that you were already playing on before. And, for example, if we get to a slip on here that pays 3 to 4x, maybe it's a 3-leg slip that pays 6x and you want to boost it that 50% and get it to a 9x payout. Great, right? I think that's something that you should 100% take advantage of. The reason why we can't really talk about it, and it's also worthy of kind of staying away from, is not everyone gets access to those. So, I don't want to completely base the content on a boost when some people aren't going to get access to it. And by some people, I mean myself. I don't get access to any promotions after being limited on these sites. You said you were wrong on the cautious. Yeah, that's why I like to look at the stats, Parker, because, in theory, you're right. He's a cautious player. He's more of a plotter, that wily veteran, right? That should be a little bit more cautious off the tee. But crazy enough, right? He did not hit a lot of irons off the tee. You were looking at Rory over 2.5 bogeys. The guy has zero control over his driver. He hit 2 fairways today. Yeah, so he's going off early, I'm guessing, because he was out late today. If you were going to take a fade, I'm okay on a 2.5 on an elite guy because that 2.5 is a very aggressive projection. I wouldn't be fading like a 2.5 in the PM per se, but an AM player that's playing in the 10 to 12 mile an hour winds, I could totally get behind. So I'm okay with that. He said, that's great advice. You're going to pivot to Matty Fitz playing in the easier conditions. I like that, man. Especially you want to be trying grinding as much value as you can. Those conditions, which it's not a massive bump, but let's say the fairway difference is like 0.3 to 0.4 from one side of the tee times to the other, that could be the difference of you pushing or cashing on a player. So always grind it out where you can. And yeah, I think the over on Rory bogeys could be okay. Just give me plus money on that. I would say even money might not be enough. You're saying, yeah, Harris is winning this. Okay. You heard it there first from Keone. Obviously a big believer in the guy from Georgia. Can't blame you. He's an absolute dog. He's got that bulldog in him. But let's go through these pin locations. So I wanted to do that to see exactly where they have these set. I haven't had a chance to go through them myself. Hole number 1 is in this back left corner. So when I can get this to load, it's stuck on hole 18 momentarily. It's a medium length par 4. The tee shot's normally into the wind. I did hear that it's slightly quartering tomorrow, so it might not be as into the wind as what it was for today, but it's still going to be a long hole, partially into the wind at the very least. And I would say this back left pin's easier than today. This back right pin, it doesn't look like there's that much of an issue there. But what you can't see with these overhead views, which is kind of unfortunate because on the PGA Tour, we can see the sloping, is that to this back right corner, there's a massive hump. So there's a hump towards the right of it that you saw balls kind of feeding off of, getting closer to the pin. But there's also a slope right in front of this pin location. And it's severe. If you ended up hitting it 10 to 15 feet short, some people were rolling the whole way back to like 40 feet, including which people that 3-putt to start their golf tournament. So this pin location on this side of the green, you have to go over that. It's almost like a false front, but it's not, right? It's in the middle of the green, so we can't call it a false front, but it's that same kind of sloping that bisects this green complex. To this back left, there's still some back to front slope, but it's not as severe as this front, I'd say back right corner. And a lot of people, so you can see this with Sam Burns today, right? His shot fed to that back left corner. I think this pin location is significantly easier. And in fact, it's not even just him that had that kind of shot happen. Let's look at Phil Mickelson. Where did he end up? Let's get it to go to hole 1. This is just okay. So he ended up below that slope. So he came off that slope and came the whole way back there. That shows you the difficulty of that one. But I'm trying to find another guy who hit it to that back left corner. I think Scotty did. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Scotty was another one who ended up a little bit short. But if you take a look at the scatter chart, a lot of the other players in the field, they were either short, like you saw with those two, or towards that very back left corner. So, on moving day, that's probably when they'll use this front right pin location. Expect to see quite a few birdies. And it's not going to be an easy pin location towards that back left just because it's into the wind again, but a little bit easier than you had for round 1. Next up, we have 2, which is in the back right corner. I would say it's a slightly harder pin than today, and actually I might be wrong about that. It might actually be slightly easier than round 1. I was going to say slightly harder because it was in the back, right? It's a slightly longer chip shot, but from remembering play today, this left side, what you can't really see from this overhead view is everything slopes from the left side of this green down to the low area about where my cursor is now. And it's a big drop off. It's like a 5-yard drop. And you had a lot of players that were having a really difficult time getting up and down from that left side of the green. In fact, you had a few that chipped in, like DJ chipped in. I think maybe even Tom Kim may have putted from just off the green and made a birdie. But a lot of players were hitting it to like 15 feet in the middle of the green. This back right side is a slightly longer chip shot, but it does give players a lot more green to work with to that back right corner. And you don't want to go over the back right. That's going to be a real difficult up and down. But the vast majority of people missing it too, if you take a look at the scatter chart, were towards the left side of the screen. So, a left side pin location that was tucked towards that side was probably harder than what you're going to get for round 2. So in that back right, I think you're going to see a slightly higher birdie rates. Next up, we have 3, which is in the front left. This is a par 3. I would say it's about the same as today. I'm not sure on the sloping. I feel like there's a false front of sort on this green, which the false front would complicate it a little bit, but not a big difference, I would say, compared to round number 1. I'm not as familiar with hole 3 as some of the other ones around this track, so I guess maybe a little bit lower confidence on that take there. Let's go to 4. So 4 is in the middle left, closer towards the back side of this green complex. So about where I have my cursor there, which looks like a slightly harder pin. I would say only slightly harder though, because this front left mound that you can see in front of the green was protecting this pin location. And now you have a little bit more room towards that portion of the green. So it is a longer shot, but it is slightly less tucked over that hump. So in fact, just like hole number 3, I'm going to say that that one is a neutral pin location. I'm not even sure if we can really say that's harder. Next up, let's go to 5, which is in the back right. This is an easier hole. This is a potentially drivable par 4. I'm not 100% sure on which way the wind is quartering, but this should still be somewhat downwind, just like it was for today. And you do have some out of bounds over the back side of this green. So this pin location at 5 is getting really close to that. So you're going to get some players that are scared to go after it just because they don't want to hit it an extra 2 yards long and end up out of bounds. But what you are going to see a lot of people do is make pars at hole number 5. So on the sports books, they'll probably have a hole 5 prop where you can bet on people on what they make. I'm sure that par is going to be by far the minus money prop. It might be worth taking though in some of the shorter players in the field, especially those that can't drive the green. If you drive the green, you might be able to 2-putt for a birdie. But if you're ending up like a shorter player, like one of like the senior tour guys who maybe can't quite reach the green like Scotty almost did today, but you're like closer towards in between these pot bunkers or something, that back right corner, just with the real scary shot of going out of bounds over, I think you're going to see a lot of people hitting it to 20 feet and 2-putting. So maybe the pars on those players could make sense. Let's go to 6 next. 6 is the front pin location. It is a longer par 3. And this pin, it looks easier. I promise you it's not easier though. This pin location is by far the hardest at 6. And if you guys saw my course breakdown on Monday, I actually pointed out this pin location. I said that anything on the front side of 6 is absolute death, because if you miss short, there's a false front there. It rolls down the whole way down where my cursor is now. So, and by the way, that's a short-sided chip then over the false front and up about 5 to 10 yards. And if you end up short, you're just going to come back down to your feet. So I guarantee you that you see a bunch of doubles at hole 6. In fact, probably like a 10% plus double rate. And I would say of the players that end up going down that false front, that a solid, like 20% of them, maybe probably more than that, probably like a third of the players that end up short on 6 are going to end up making a double bogey there. And, it's easy not to make a double. All you have to do is hit the chip 20 feet past the hole. But these players are so good that their ego is, a little bit juiced up compared to most of us players, that they're going to go for that shot. And the margin for error is so small on that kind of shot that you're going to see people really, really get screwed there. Next up, we have 7, which is a middle left pin. This is a par 5. And I would say that this is going to be the easiest hole on the golf course. I believe today I was the second easiest hole that you had. Middle left is at a low spot. The chip is even easier. And what you saw today is a lot of people missing towards the right side of the screen. There's a lot of slope. So this hill you can see there, I was trying to zoom in, but it zoomed us out to the Google Earth stage for some reason. But this little sand mounding towards the right side kicks everything back in. So people were hitting it off that dune and then using it to get back closer to the green. And then you'd have a lot of green to work with your chip. Next up, we have 8. 8 is in the middle right side. It looks tucked too. It's right next to this bunker. It's about where my cursor is now. I would say that it's harder than today. It's closer towards the hazard. And I'm assuming that this is some sort of a chipping hollow towards the right side. So yeah, it looks on paper slightly more difficult. I'm not 100% familiar with this golf course yet. I wish we had the overhead view with the slopes. It would help a ton with a golf course that we aren't seeing every single year. Next up, though, we have 9, which is a front pin that should be easier than today. It's about where my cursor is now. So not that far from today's pin location, though. So probably not that big of a difference there. 10, though, is an easier pin. 10 was tucked in the way back today. Now it's going to be on that front quadrant. And I would say so far, we've seen more easier pins than hard pins. So that combined with the fact that the winds aren't going to be as bad in the afternoon, kind of has me thinking it's a positive stance play slate where you maybe go unders on strokes, maybe over on birdies for the guys that are teeing off late. It's keep this moving, though. So let's go to what would be on 12, which is a middle. Sorry, we're on 11. Getting ahead of ourselves. 11, which is a back left pin location. This was a long, difficult hole. In fact, this was the hardest hole in all of 2019. The wind direction is still going to be similar enough to today where it's going to be a brutal, difficult hole. But when it goes the other direction, I think either Saturday, Sunday, it's almost 180 degrees different than today. This hole actually won't be that bad. So I think tomorrow it'll still be in the top 5 most difficult holes. But on Saturday, Sunday, look for that to change a bit at 11. And by the way, this pin on the backside, just makes it even harder. It makes a long hole even longer. Next up, then we have 12, which is on the middle right side of this green complex. It's about where my cursor is now. This is the easiest hole on the golf course. It's the shortest par 5. It's only about 500 and it'll probably be like 530 to the pin location for tomorrow. And I would say, though, a slightly harder pin just because it's going to be a harder chip. Most of your players missing today were either front left, about where my cursor is now, or over here towards the right side. It's a longer chip. I'd say if you're missing towards the left, it's easier because you're going to have that green to work with. But a front right miss is going to be a tight angle towards that back right pin. Next up, though, we have 13. So 13 is a back middle pin. It's shading towards the left side. It's I don't know, about the same as today. It's only 5 paces apart, so not much to say about 13. Let's go to 14 next. So 14 is in the back right side of this green complex. It looks harder than today, and I would venture to say that it probably will be a little bit harder. So there are a few pins that look tricky, but I don't know. I still stand by it looking slightly easier so far. Let's go to 15. So 15 is a front pin. That's easier than today. False front, I'm sure, is in play, as they almost always are at these link style courses, or at least some kind of sloping at the front, right? Sometimes it's even front to back sloping, which adds some difficulty of its own, but I would assume that you see a slightly higher birdie rate there. 16 is a front left pin location. This is Calamity Corner. This is the hardest hole on the golf course. Left side pins at Calamity are by far easier than the right side one. So that's another one that should be a slightly lower scoring average. 17 is a back middle pin. This is potentially drivable, but it won't be with this kind of wind direction. It was slightly into the wind today, so even with it quartering 30 degrees, it's still going to be hurting the players quite a bit. But on Saturday, Sunday, when we get that opposite direction, 17 could be potentially drivable, so keep an eye out for that one. Pin location is almost exactly where it was today, so not that much movement there. And then finally, 18 is a front right pin location. It looks easier than today. And in fact, it should be a lot easier. From watching the play today, everyone was scared to miss to the left side. You can kind of see the sloping even from this overhead view, which you can't really see that much slope on it typically. So that shows you just how much there is at the left side of the screen. But if you miss left, you're like down near that white line for your next chip shot. So with this front right pin location, that's where a lot of players were bailing out because it's flatter on this right side of the green. So you're going to be able to hit it closer. You're going to be able to be a lot more aggressive because you're not scared about that left miss. So yeah, going back to the pin locations, I think that adding on top of the fact that the weather looks a little bit softer has me pretty confident with that +1 scoring average. I think it's probably going to be a stroke easier than the day before, weather being by far the biggest impact on that average. But the pin locations over the 18 holes on average are slightly easier than round number 1. So this +2 might be the hardest scoring average that we see over the first 2 rounds, which, helps give us an idea of exactly what to expect heading into the next day. So next thing we're going to do is break down the Underdog and Prize Picks boards, which I actually haven't had a chance to fully break down myself yet. So we're going to get a little bit of a live reaction to some of the lines. You guys are going to get a good sense for exactly what I'm looking for and kind of how I do my deep dive process to try and find some props. Any questions, we're going to go through those as well. So your questions, by the way, might even help us find some props that we take for this live stream. But we're going to enter at least 1 slip together, maybe even 2 or more on these pick'em sites. Prize Picks will be in the mix as well. And then afterwards is where we're going to go through some matchup props. That'll be like the 3 balls, maybe some head-to-heads that you're getting on Draftkings, Hard Rock Bet, that kind of thing. That'll be in probably about 20 minutes after we get through this pick'em stuff. But let's catch up on the chat, see what's going on there. So what do I think the cut line will be? I'm guessing +3. After seeing the scoring, though, there's a chance that it's +2. But yeah, most likely getting the +3. He said, thoughts on Bryson over 71.5? Well, after seeing the setup, I'm not as bullish on fades, but he is morning wave. So he's on the side where it's going to be windy and he hates links golf. He said so himself. The stats back it up. He has a horrendous Open Championship record over the years. I'm okay with that, Jack. I would normally give you a pushback just because of when he's teeing off, but not with a Bryson. He said, who are my top 3 picks to have the best round 2 scores? He said, not looking at round 1 totals, just round 2 alone. I don't really have a top 3, Edward. That's kind of like just asking for my top 3 fantasy plays. But I mean, if you're just saying in a vacuum who I think has the lowest score, it's a cop-out answer, but Scotty, Rory, John, Rahm. on average, if you pick those 3 players, you're going to get a lower running total than taking any other players in the field. So if you can truly pick anyone, Edward, go with those 3. If you have to be like looking at salary and that kind of thing, like DFS wise, check out my Patreon because I have a whole bunch of player pool options over there. He said, where are the 3-ball bets? That'll be in about 20 minutes towards the end of this live stream. Can I take a look at Corey Connors? I absolutely can. And by the way, if you guys have any questions about how a specific player sets up, we can go through those as well. That can be for DFS, that can be prop wise and whatnot. I'm just bringing up the stats right now so that we can go through it together. So Corey Connors had a sneaky good day. And, he's returning from injury, so a lot of people were gun shy to use him in lineups this week. But he gained off the tee. He gained on approach, albeit ever so slight gains to the field, 0.1, 0.2 strokes in each category. But in the short game categories, he lost a stroke to the field, which isn't a positive, but it shows that he's got a lot of room for improvement. It's not like he was chipping in or getting lucky on the greens. He didn't have his fastball, but it wasn't like it was done in a horrendous fashion. So, I would say that he grades out as like a 6 out of 10. You're not going to grade him out as like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 after shooting +3. But the way that he shot +3 was about as good as you could possibly do it, right? This stat profile is about as positive as you can find on somebody that had a terrible round. So, 6 out of 10 on Corey Connors. Not a terrible setup. Looking at Bazainhout over 71.5. So, I like that, Ernie. I mean, if you take a look at the shots gained metrics, he was a little bit short game dependent, as you would imagine, gaining over 3 strokes with the putter. So let's see what he tees off. That's, I guess, the second thing I'd be curious about on him. Let's see. I guess we could have just gone to the prop sites, but now that we made it over here, we might as well. He tees off at what time? 8:36. So he is a morning wave player. I could get behind that. And you said he's at 71.5, right? I actually like that quite a bit. I mean, that's 0.5 over par. Even with the easier averages, I think it's still going to play +1, right? That's kind of what we were quoting before. 0.5 over par is that 71.5. And Bazainhout, who is so short game dependent and on the wrong side of tee times, I think that that's a really sharp take. So he's at 72.5. What is he at on Prize Picks? Is he at that 71.5 mark? So he's at 72 on Prize Picks. 71.5, if you can find it on a sports book or maybe one of the smaller pick'em sites, I think is a very, very sharp take. So let me know, by the way, Ernie, where you're taking that. I'm assuming it's on like Bet365 or Draftkings. If we can find that on a site like Parlay Play, Sleeper, I'm all for playing that. He said, check out Chinese SpongeBob for the Prize Picks under on strokes. Chinese SpongeBob. Shout out to Hao Tong Lee, by the way, guys. That's the Chinese SpongeBob special. By the way, they have a picture for him now. Let me zoom in so I can show you guys. Tell me that doesn't look like SpongeBob. I mean, he's got the yellow shirt on and everything too, kind of just adding to the mystique. Love my guy, Hao Tong Lee. He's at 72.5 strokes. So you were looking at him to shoot +1 or better. So he's teeing off slightly later. He's got, I think it's a 12:42 local tee time in the afternoon. I could get behind that, man. That's asking him to have an average day pretty much. I think scoring average can be about +1, so that's 72 strokes. Hao Tong Lee tends to be streaky, and he had a really good round today. -4 first round leader. I would normally kind of give you a pushback on the guys that played really well the day before, just because sometimes their projections get inflated. But 72.5, that feels fair. Like if he was at 73 strokes, I would say that'd be really, really good value. 72.5 is pretty fair. And then considering the narrative that he's extremely streaky, maybe makes that a pretty good play. So yeah, no pushback for me on that one, man. He said Connors under 8.5 fairways could be a good read. He hit 5 out of 14 today. So yeah, the under at 8.5, I mean, average was 6.5. Actually a little bit below 6.5 per round. I would say getting to 9 is going to be tough for just about anyone. The fact that it's only -135 juice, I think is pretty reasonable on that too. And let's just check out what Corey Connors has done the last week or so with his driving accuracy. In particular, I want to see what he did at the Genesis. So let me actually share this so you guys can see my data golf tab. So let's go to Corey Connors. At the Genesis last week, he did gain accuracy. So he is an elite tier accuracy guy. That is why he's at that kind of projection. But the last couple weeks, since returning from injury and since getting injured, US Open, he's only been just about an average player in the category. So yeah, with that -135, not that much juice towards the under, I could see playing that, man. That's another one that I'm not going to give you too much pushback on. Not one I'm running to play myself, but not one I'm going to actively talk you off of either. Ben Griffin at 71.5. He said he tees off late, didn't play well today, though. Could you have a look? Let's look at the stats. That's usually what I defer to on those because kind of like what we saw with Corey Connors, he's playing better than the stats would kind of indicate. So with good old B-dubs, he lost on approach. He gained with his around the green play. Actually, sorry, he lost off the tee. Misread that. My apologies. Lost 1.4 off the tee, gained 0.3 on approach. It's not the worst stat profile I've ever seen in history. I mean, he just couldn't hit a fairway today. He only hit 35% of his fairways, which is going to be an issue. And on top of that, of this 1.4 shots that he lost off the tee, most of them were where he hit an OB ball off the tee, right? When you hit a ball out of bounds like he did on hole number 1, that's 1.5, 2 strokes right there. So outside of that first hole, he was an average to maybe even slightly above average off the tee player. And that's despite only hitting 35% of his fairways. And he gained on approach, and he wasn't that terrible with the putter. I actually think that Ben Griffin sets up extremely well heading up into the next day. In fact, I played him in some lineups. I think that he's just a high upside bounce back option. Like Ben Griffin a few weeks ago was the talk of the town. He was playing like Scotty Scheffler. Everyone wanted to use him at like 20, 25% ownership in GPPs. Give me some Ben Griffin, man. I think he's just a class golfer. You're looking at Xander under 70.5, Fox 71.5, and Rory over bogeys. So the Rory over bogeys is maybe the only one I give pushback on. I'm personally not a massive favorite on fading Rory here. I do think he sets up quite well for this course. The morning tee time, though, is a little bit of a tough scene. The unders on strokes, though, I really like, especially because Xander's PM wave, him to shoot under par feels pretty reasonable. Let's just double check on the sportsbook odds. I'm going to see exactly where they have them. I'm assuming maybe even juiced under. So here's the issue here. He's at that 70.5 mark, and he's minus 150 towards the over. So you're talking about heavily favored in the other direction. Now, I'm assuming that you're taking him on a site at that 70.5 where you're getting a multiplier or an extra payouts because of that kind of juice. If you're getting the extra payout, I'm not necessarily against it, but I am against it if you have to take it at even money because, you know, on a sports book like you have here on DraftKings, you could get plus 115 odds for taking that under as a straight bet, which is far advantageous for playing it at even money on one of those pick'em sites. So yeah, just make sure that you're getting decent line value on that. And then the Ryan Fox one, I'm more 50-50 on. Like I like the Xander Schauffele under because he played decently today. He's got really good links history. But if we go to Ryan Fox has some decent links history. So respect for respect's due there. He was just a little bit more pedestrian today. He shot +4. He lost on approach. I mean, he gained off the tee at least. That's kind of good to see. But week before that too, he struggled over the weekend at the Genesis Scottish Open. So yeah, just giving you my 2 cents on some of those props. And yeah, make sure on the Xander one, main takeaway from that, make sure that you're getting a multiplier if you're playing that. The Xander over greens, that's not my favorite play, man. He's not always the best player at hitting greens regulation. In fact, I keep forgetting a tab, right? And we're always forgetting one tab, and I'm going and adding it. Let's add the PGA Tour tab to the mix. My apologies there. If we go to the approach play, and we go to green and regulation percentage, I know he's had a better year than most years, but even then, he's number 106 in the category. So let me see what his projection is because it all comes down to that, right? I was just kind of giving you my first take on that. He's at 10.5, and let's see, does he have a line on Prize Picks for it too? So yeah, no green regulation line on Prize Picks. Come on now. A lot of players in the field. I guess it's a good problem to have with all the selection. But Zaynhood is minus 130 towards the over at that 10.5 mark. So that's probably what you're seeing there. I don't know if I'm the biggest fan of that just because Christian Zaynhood's on the wrong side of tee times. He's teeing off at 8:30 local. So he's going to be on the side that has those 10-mile-an-hour winds. It's not like it's going to blow him off the golf course or anything, but that means that I think it's going to play closer to the average from today. Like, I think it's going to be like a 10.5, maybe 10.75 average in the morning, which for a player like Zaynhood, let's say it's a 10.5 to 10.75 average. A player like Zaynhood, who's number 106 on tour at hitting greens regulation, is projecting for that 10.5, maybe even slightly below that number because he's not the best in that category. So I don't think it's the best value. Whereas if he was a PM wave, let's say that he was teeing off in the afternoon, that kind of thing, he might be closer to like actual 50-50 value there, or maybe even slightly juiced towards the over, because then he would be on the better side of things where I think that average, rather than only being 10.5 to 10.75, is going to be 11 to maybe even over a little bit over 11 greens per round. So yeah, if you had a better tee time, I could be for it. And in fact, I kind of want to go with a Bazainhout fade personally for tomorrow. I just, especially with the kind of shots gained putting that he's posted at this point, it feels slightly unsustainable. Like those, 3.7 strokes in the short game categories. This 2 strokes ball striking is great. I mean, if he could do that all 4 rounds, he's going to have a good golf tournament. But it's hard to believe that this aspect is going to continue the entire time. That's the, I guess, the worry with him. He took Sugar Shane Lowry under 71.5 strokes too. Ooh, I like that Illini. So he's PM wave. He's going to be on the right side of things. And he won last time they played at this golf course. His ball striking has been decent heading into this event, just the short game kind of holding him back. And the one thing about Shane Lowry is that he loves fescue. So I like that quite a bit. So you're saying that was on your book. Let's see. For the Bazainhout over 71.5. Man, minus 120 on that, Ernie. That's a nice line. I would enter that for a unit, maybe even a 2-unit nuke. Yeah, you're going to have to let me know. Maybe send me a DM on Twitter if you could, Ernie, on exactly what book that is. Because I need to do some investigating because I have some proxies I can go through. Let's say we were 1 week too early on the Lee first round. In fact, we were. That's true. He said flop flag after the missed cut in the Scottish, and he was a popular value play. Yeah, I would say that my buddy Nick used him in lineups. Like there were still people that got to him this week. Yeah, but you're right. I was much higher on him last week and not this time around. The one thing about Howtown Lee, though, is that he's just like Keegan Bradley. It's like the Keegan Bradley experience where you shoot -4 and then +4 the next day. Howtong is known for doing that too. So, and by the way, that's the thing with Howtong. If tomorrow he shoots -2, he might win this thing. Like he's that streaky. If you get him on a heater, a couple of rounds in a row where he goes low, he might do it for 4 straight days. The thing is after -4 days, he goes one of 2 directions. He either, kind of keeps it going another solid round, or it's like it blows up in your face +4, +5. So we'll have to see what Howtong does. I hope it's the good day. Like I don't have that much exposure this week, but I hope he keeps it together because he's fun to watch. He's a character out there, Chinese SpongeBob as we call him. Thoughts on Mickelson fade at 73.5? So I'm actually not the biggest fan of that Mickelson fade, just because he's actually got a later tee time, which a lot of times would be a bad thing, but in this circumstance is actually advantageous given the forecast that we have. And he played well today. I mean, he shot -1. He kept it together for the entire round. Shots gained metrics, though, I do want to deep dive that because I know he wasn't standing out too much with the ball striking. He was short game dependent. He had one chip in from the bunker. He made a whole bunch of putts too. So I don't think it's out of reason to fade him at 73.5 strokes. The reason why I'm not a big fan of it, though, is that if you're just joining us, the weather conditions are going to be a little bit more advantageous tomorrow. And the pin locations, we went through those together here as well. They're a little bit softer for round number 2. So I personally think the scoring average is going to go from this +2 to maybe +1. If it was a +2 scoring average, then yeah, Phil Mickelson, that's a 73 scoring average, by the way, like you can see right there. Phil would project for worse than the average. Like that's a fair thing to say. But now if the average is only +1, so that's 72 strokes, that would put him at like a 72.5 projection. So that's why I'd be a little bit more hesitant about the fade now, just because I think overall course conditions, especially on the PM side, are going to be as bad as today. He said he can definitely relate to that OB duck hook by Ben Griffin. Me too, man. I haven't hit a duck hook off the tee in a while. I used to all the time. I have a very strong grip. I have the baseball grip off the tee. I have a regular overlap with my irons. Don't ask why I have multiple grips. It's a long story. Has to do with injuries and broken bones, that sort of thing. But yeah, man, I could relate to that too. I've since corrected that sort of an issue. But if I take an iron off the tee, I'm prone to that sort of miss. He said Xander was the 1.12x multiplier. Yeah, if you're getting a multiplier, then I'm okay with that. Just I wanted to make sure, because if it was even money at that number, I didn't want you to be taking a line that wasn't there at the value. Could Harry Hall understrokes be good? He said he was only 2 over today while making an 8 on a par 5. Yeah, so the stats on Harry Hall are going to be very misleading. And I mean, you had a few guys in the field that had blow up holes. Like, Jordan Spieth had a stretch of like 3-4 holes where he made like 4 bogeys in a row. He had a neck flare up. They pointed it out on the broadcast. He was rubbing his neck. He was having Greller work at something in his lower back as well. But after he got through that 4-hole stretch and was not like touching his neck anymore, he played fantastic for his last 10 holes. So, sometimes I don't know what it was with Harry Hall. Maybe he just woke up on the wrong side of the bed and, got off to that terrible start. by the end of the day, shooting +2 is very, very good. I mean, being plus what, 4 through your first 3 holes and then ending up only +2 on the day, yeah. I don't know. The shots gained aren't great. He lost over 4 strokes on approach. So he's going to have to figure that one out to have a low day, but it's within his range of outcomes. He said Bazanhu also lucked out a lot today, and the numbers show it. He was putting great. So we can call it luck. And I would normally, like chalk up the luck. Like you're not going to make a bunch of those 20, 30 footers. The one thing I will say about Bazanhu, because I got to see a lot of it, they were showing his putts towards the middle to the end of the round, they were putting so well. Every putt looked like it had a chance. If he wasn't making them, he was scaring the hole. Also, Matt McNeely was doing the same exact thing. He was having a good round, so they were showing a lot of his action on the main broadcast. He was either making his putts from 20 feet or lipping them out almost every single time. So don't be completely surprised if he has another low one out there. But it's, normally you're not gaining 3.5 strokes putting every single day. Like that's just, there's obviously limits to that kind of luck. He said, thanks for the great insight as usual. He said, I hope I take the head-to-head and shut the dude up. Yeah, man, I'm actually kind of conflicted on that time. You think I should take it, right? And just shut him up? Here's the issue that I'm having with it. I have the invite. I haven't accepted it yet. Is that if I play the guy and beat him, he's not going to say anything, right? But if I play him and lose, he's going to screenshot it. He's going to talk shit and do all of that. I kind of feel like I should just play him anyways because I'm not scared of losing, but it is kind of like a lose-lose situation, right? Like it's not really ever going to help me. I'm not going to go around like proud that I beat some random troll online. Like it means nothing to me. But if I lose, it has all the upside to the other guy, right? He's going to feel great about it. So I don't know. We'll see. I'll probably accept it, but I don't know. I guess it's good that you asked about it because I wanted to get the thoughts from the chat on like, what would you do if you're in my shoes? It's a little different as a content creator, right? I feel like there's more to lose than more to gain, but it might be fun to do. He said, do I think Marco Penge could bounce back tomorrow? You took him to make the cut with Bryson to miss it. I like the Bryson to miss. I think that was really sharp. And yeah, Marco, he could bounce back. Let's take a look at the stats. But I mean, he had a great Genesis Scottish. So the form's excellent. Even before that, he was playing well in the DP World Tour. He gained on approach today and he lost with the putter. This is the perfect kind of bounce back stat profile. We want guys to bounce back that were hitting the ball decently. Him losing off the tee was all with the accuracy, right? He only hit 28.6% of fairways. That's not going to get the job done. You've got to hit more than, I think that's 3 or 4 fairways that he hit out of 14. He's going to have to improve on that. But if he does that, let's say he hits closer to 6 or 7, he still gains on approach, and then he gains strokes putting like he did last week. By the way, just to show you Marco Penge's stats on the putting greens last week, he gained, 4.5 over the 4 rounds. So I'm totally fine with Marco Penge, man. I think that this kind of stat profile actually makes him an even better play, and especially with the kind of course history that he has at these links courses. You DM'd me on Twitter after the tournament is over. We should try and set it up. I'm all for that, man. Definitely let me know. He said, just ban him. Yeah, I probably should just ban him. And I'm glad I asked, right? Because like I felt like maybe I was being like soft for not accepting it, but you're right. Like I should just ignore the guy, right? Like that's what he wants, right? He wants me to accept it. He wants to win, and then he wants to make it something like, why even give the guy an opportunity, right? I think you're probably right about that. He said, let me know when I'm in LA and we can play at Sherwood. Dude, I would absolutely love so, Christian. Christian, that's an amazing golf course. I'm going to take you up on that if I'm in the area. And I haven't been to LA since the US Open. That was there at LACC, but I will definitely let you know. And he said, don't blame him. That's what he wants. We all know you get the best content. And yeah, you saw that too early on that other live stream. Yeah, I think we're just not going to play the guy then. I think you guys are right about that. But let's find some props to enter. So I'm glad that we got through the questions. Let's see what we can find for an actual piece of exposure here. And as I was saying, I think we want PM wave guys for unders on strokes or overs on birdies. I just think that it's going to play at least a stroke easier. And based on what I was seeing before on some of these lines, it looked like they were half reasonable for some of these guys. So there's the Ryan Fox one. So I know we had a line I saying that maybe you'd take the Ryan Fox under. With this kind of multiplier, I think that could make sense. You know, the form wasn't great today. That was kind of my gripe with it, but I didn't realize that you were getting some extra value, some extra multiplier there. That kind of changes things at least. Like a Novak at 72.5 looks like a good under, but we've also got to keep in mind that he's going off earlier when conditions aren't going to be as easy. So let's see, I'm looking at the tee times and I'm trying to see if we can find, like a Pendrith is going off later. He's about noon. Like that could be the kind of play that would make sense for this. But let's see, we got a Straka at 71.5. Jason Day is at that 71.5 number as well. There's Shane Lowry. I actually think the Shane Lowry under is something I want to explore on here a lot. Let's see what else we have though. So a lot of 71.5s with a slight multiplier under. I'm wondering if on Prize Picks that if they're down at 71 or if they're at 71.5 still and we can enter them there without a multiplier. So we'll have to do a cross check to see exactly what Prize Picks has a lot of these guys at. But JT, he's going off at 10. It's a little bit of an earlier tee time that I want, but 71.5 for him. I mean, even par or better feels pretty reasonable. Let's see what they have here on the Prize Pick side. So we're going to go down towards the bottom. These are the guys that are teeing off later, which are the players that we want to look at here. So they do have some 71.5s that make sense. Like a Matt Fitzpatrick immediately kind of stands out. Let's see what his line is on the sports book. So let's get to the right category. So we're not looking at mumbo jumbo here like we were. It's bring up Fitzpatrick, who is minus 130 towards his under. Like maybe that would make sense, right? For like one of these PM players to have himself a day. Let's see, 72.5 on Gotterup. I mean, the disrespect. The guy just won the week before at a similar style golf course. I think that one's a pretty good play, that 72.5 on a Gotterup. But let's see who else is on here. They've got Phil at 73.5. I know, people were pointing him out before as potential fade. I'd probably stay away from the fade just because he's at the same line as today. And I think conditions will be a little bit easier. But that's starting to get a little bit too early for the tee time. Again, we want afternoon guys when that wind is starting to get a little bit calmer. I mean, Cantlay at 71.5. I mean, I feel like these books are just way too negative on these players. Like these are the world's best players. You got to realize too that these averages get thrown off by some of the players in the field. I mean, let's just to go to the leaderboard and show you guys what I mean by that. Let's bring up the regular leaderboard here. We scroll down to the bottom. I mean, you have a lot of under par players. Let's see 31 players shot under par. That was even with the really high winds today. But if we scroll down to the very bottom, like don't forget about these players. Like this amateur Brian Newman shot plus 11. I mean, I know it's Tom Hoagie, so I guess we can't really throw him out. But like KJ Choi, Curtis Luck, I believe they're both like 55, 60 years old. Like no crap. They shot plus 9, plus 10. This Daniel Vintonder guy is on like the third European tour. Like no crap, he shot plus 8. Which by the way, I saw people that were talking up Daniel Vintonder this week. I have a word for people that do that sort of dumb shit, and we're not going to say it here because it'll get me canceled. But yeah, if you talked up DVT this week, you should call the 1-800-GAMBLER number. He was probably the most rat shit play he could have possibly made. But all of these guys down towards the bottom severely impact that average. And, some of them are legit players. So like Bryson, right? Like a Mackenzie Hughes, a Kevin Yu, for example. But a lot of them are your guys that hardly made it into the field. So your true scoring average was probably closer to like plus 1.5. Then you add on top of that the better conditions. You add on top of it the easier pins. Your scoring average for legit PGA Tour players is probably going to be at worst plus 1, probably better than that, probably like plus 0.5. And then when you add on top of that the PM side is going to be the easier of the two, like that's why I think that these unders are really, really good value. So like, I'm just kind of spitballing ideas. We'll see which ones actually end up making our exposure. But like 72 on Spawn, like that's even kind of disrespectful on him. Like I know he's not a world killer or anything, but he'd be getting push equity at 72 and he's at 71.5 on the books. It's intriguing. Let's look at Patrick Reed. Do they have a line for P. Reed posted? Probably not after his dog shit round. Thing is, Patrick Reed has a lot of pride. He doesn't, he's not somebody that goes out there after a bad day and just kind of like gives up the next. He's the exact opposite of that. You'd call him a grinder. But let's look at some of these other categories. So that was strokes. Let's do our due diligence and some of the other ones. And I want to go to these late tee times. Again, I think that that's where the edge is here. Like the morning, I think that some of the lines make sense, that they're pretty fair in a lot of cases. Oh, Akshay, he fucked us today, huh? That wasn't great on Akshay. I wish he would have made at least one more birdie. Would have made my life a little bit easier on the prop side. But let's see how he did it. Gained off the tee, gained on approach, and then, lost a bunch around the green. Ripped that. He was greenside multiple times on par fives. It couldn't get up and down for a simple birdie. He does that once, and he ties the line for us. So, like, that's why I'm kind of annoyed with him. But the reason why I look at the stats, too, is that it confirms what I watched today and what I tracked hole by hole. He played really good golf, but he didn't convert when it was easy. And it was around the green shots that he needed to get up and down for birdie. So I could see myself getting to Bhatia. He still made 2 birdies today, right? Despite not taking advantage of those par 5s. And let's see, first par 5 didn't birdie. Second one was able to birdie. Third one was not able to take advantage of. You'd have to think that he's going to have a little bit more success at some point this week. So like even in Akshay at 3 birdies, like that could be something to consider. But let's see who else they have at 3. They've got JJ Spawn at that number. Let's do some line shopping too. The sports books don't always know what they're doing, but I do like to see what they're thinking at the very least. So Spawn minus 185 towards the under. Let's see if they have a Bhatia lineup. They do, and he's minus 200. So, you know, between those two, I guess JJ Spawn would be the better quote unquote line value. I do want to take a look at the averages though. So let's go to scoring. Let's bring up birdie or better percentage. And I know Bhatia is way up there. He's number 14, but let's go to JJ Spawn. What's Spawn? Spawn's number 73. Yeah, it's a situation where I don't really agree with the sports books. I think that Bhatia, as the more aggressive and high birdie percentage player, should probably be a little bit more juiced towards the over, if you had to ask me, or less juice towards the under, I guess, in the case of those two players. And then you get some of these mid-level tee times. So like that's why I'm kind of not looking at this middle to the top end of the board. I guess let's go to strokes and let's look at the top end of the board for potential fades. Like I said, if you were going to bet against somebody, you would do it for the first few guys out, just because I do think that the wins are going to be more substantial. But like at 72 strokes, that's what I think the average is going to be. And most of the field here, most of the guys that we have on this board, just to remind ourselves, right, like aren't these shitters at the bottom end of the board. Like DVT, for example, that shouldn't even be in this sort of field. They're legit players like you have on this prize picks board. So that's why I think at 72 strokes, like I wouldn't be fading them. And this is the side of the board that we are looking for quote unquote fades. I wouldn't even be fading these sort of players because I think that those are fair projections. Like they should be slightly better than where I have that field average or right at that field average at the very least. So yeah, I think the best way to attack this slate would be to take the unders on strokes or the over on birdies for some of these later starters, just because, and even if we're not getting the highest payouts, right? Like the correlation rules are going to lower our payouts a bit. I just think that's the best way to attack the slate. Let's look at Harris English on birdies. I'm curious on where he's at there. I mean, Harris he's been in pretty good form. 2.5, and he's juiced way towards the over. So, okay. Not quite the line value I thought. I thought maybe he'd be 3.5 and closer to even money, but I guess that's a little bit too optimistic of an outtake on him. Let's see, what's Cam Young at? Surprised that he's at 3.5. It feels a little high. See, he's 3.5 and even money. So the sportsbooks seem to have a pretty high take on Cameron Young there. All right, let's keep going through these categories and then we'll make our slips. So we got Keegan versus Norris. With these better matchups, I'm normally looking at the unders just because if you don't know how these 0.5 works, the guy that is the less is getting that 0.5. So for example, if Joaquin Niemann and Harry Hall ended up with the same amount of birdies or better, this would end up hitting for the under on the less between these two. So that's why I look at the unders, because if they're getting that extra 0.5 and you can find somebody that's the better birdie maker than the guy that's listed, then you can find not only a lean that way, but also with the line value in that 0.5. And scrolling through these, it doesn't look like there's anything that's drastically off. Like maybe you would fade Bryson because he sucks at links courses, but in terms of birdie or better percentage, these are almost all spot on. In fact, if we were looking for one of those even ones where the 0.5 would have you taking the under, maybe it would be JT versus Rory, but you know, Rory, with this being a course that he's very familiar with, that's why I'm going to stay away from that one myself. But they also have a few more matchups compared to the first round. So let's see what else we have on here. So Brooks versus Jaeger, like maybe you would look towards the Jaeger side there. Brooks has had a very disappointing season so far. Not even just in the majors, but also in LIV. He's been pretty dog shit over there. It's just call a spade a spade. Let's not even gloss over it. He's been terrible. Hoagie, yeah, maybe even an over on Lowry there. Hoagie's been, speaking of terrible, Tom Hoagie's been playing some pretty rat shit golf over the last couple months. Look at this one, actually. So I'm not sure if I have the stones to do it, but like this one, Scotty versus John Rahm. All Rahm has to do is tie Scotty Scheffler to hit the under on that sort of line. Like I wouldn't be taking the over, that's for sure, on that sort of combination. I think if anything there, you'd actually be looking at the John Rahm side of things, but none of those matchups really stood out. I at least wanted to glance at them though. They have these bogey lines at 3.5. When I first looked at the board earlier, I kind of thought some unders on bogeys could make sense, because if we go to the averages, last year it was 3.7 per round. Today it was 4.28. I think with the course conditions getting easier, that's going to be at most about 4 per round, which means that these guys at like 3.5, for example, like a Spawn, a Lowry, who else kind of stands out? Like maybe a JT at that 3.5 mark. That means they just have to make one less bogey than the field average. And again, remember all these players that are dog shit at the bottom. Like this, the average is the quote unquote average when you have some people that are shooting plus 10. So speaking of, I actually want to take a look at maybe if there's some line value on these, just where the sports books have them posted. Let's go with Lowry first. So yeah, he's minus 130 towards the under. And then who was the other one? It was Lowry. I guess we don't even have to guess. It was Spawn. And yeah, probably JJ Spawn was the other one at 3.5 that kind of stood out. And he's minus 135 towards the under. And let's take a look at where they rank out for the year. I know Spawn has been an elite tier bogey avoider, so he might actually be the best one to play there out of all of these. But Spawn, 34 in the category. And then let's take a look at Lowry. Lowry ranks out as number 36 himself. So let's find our favorite two. So we're going to go the Fitzy Strokes. I bet him outright this week. I'd have to say that I think he's a pretty good play. Let's look at the shots gained metrics between Spawn and Lowry, shall we? Let's see. So Lowry, pretty good across the board. Good to see that the putter came around for him. A lot of times it'd be a red flag for him to be gaining putting, but he loves the fescue surface. And let's look at Spawn too. So Spawn get lost in the ball striking categories. Yeah, that makes that one a little bit easier for us. So what we're going to do for the slip here for the live stream is we're going to take this under on Matty Fitz Strokes. That is minus 130 towards the under. Then also the Shane Lowry under. Both of them have late tee times. Shane Lowry's going off at like 3 p.m. You have Matty Fitz, who's going off at, let's see his exact starting time, but he's going off, I believe, at like 2:30 or something like that, or close to that in local time in Ireland. This will be after the winds start to die down a little bit. There could be a little bit of rain that they're playing through, but I would rather them be playing in low winds and a little bit of rain than some of the higher winds that they have earlier. And, you know, when we take a look at this UKV, for example, they're not actually calling for that much rain anymore in the afternoon. And then like even the GFS, they are calling for a storm to come through at some point, but it's a sprinkle at the very most, and it's next to no wind coming down. I really think that these could be solid value. So the sports books already have them as value to begin with, but I think it's going to play even easier than what they think. So yeah, let's mix this in for a little 2.5x payout. Okay, that kind of changes things. Why the hell is it giving us a worse payout than it's supposed to? If that's the case, we could just pivot to multiple strokes lines, because I'm assuming, right, if we take multiple strokes lines, that it's going to be the normal 2.75x. So let's see, what is it with the Goddard up one? Goddard up, it's, yeah, still the 2.75x. And just out of curiosity, what would it look like if we did a 3-man slip with like Shane Lowry mixed in? That would be 4.25x. It really makes you wonder what the hell's going on with these bogey lines, because for some reason the payout looks absolutely screwed up on them. So yeah, I guess we're going to have to make it strokes lines that we take instead. That 2.5x payout, I know it's only a 0.25 unit difference. It matters though. Let's see, what do they have? Do they have Lowry at that number on Prize Picks? I mean, sorry, Underdog, wrong site. Getting this mixed up. It's been a long day. I didn't sleep last night, so we're running on fumes now. They do have Lowry over here, and then do they have Fitz posted? I thought they did, right? But wasn't he at like, yeah, with the multiplier towards the under? So maybe we can take these bogey or worse lines on Underdog instead and take them on that side of things. But on the Prize Pick side, it's looking like the strokes might be the better way to go about it. Let's see where they have Cantlay over here, because Cantlay could be like the backup that we take. Yeah, he's at 71.5. I want to take a look at his shots gained metrics. He's also got a later tee time. He actually lost ball striking and shot +2 today, so that's not ideal for Cantlay. Jeez Louise, you didn't have your fastball out there, huh? But he has minus 130 towards his under. He has that same kind of value going on, and he's got a slightly earlier tee time. So his tee time, I believe, is like 1:30 p.m., but that's still after most of the wind is supposed to calm down. And if we were to take these two together, it's only 2.58x. What are they doing with these bogey or worse lines. Like both of these sites are just screwing you on the payouts on those. Forget it, I guess. If we can find a fade to mix in and maybe offset that payout, get some anti-correlation boost, we can go that direction. But maybe we go with like the spawn under 72 instead. Like I know I was looking at potentially taking his under on bogeys, but perhaps we take his under on strokes instead. If he's only going to make 3 bogeys or worse and he makes 3 birdies or better, that'd be a 71 even par, be going under that kind of line. And of course, you get the push equity at that kind of number to work with. I think that might be what we do. And a curiosity, where's Corey Connors on his strokes? Just wondering what they have him at. Because Corey looks like he's back. He's got a super late tee time. The shots gained metrics, I know we talked about him a little bit earlier, but like they were kind of sneaky good, even though he shot +3. Like that could be another one that we take. We hope that he shoots even par in the slightly easier conditions. But I kind of like having this push equity at 72 just because, that's going to be the scoring average, or at least what I think the scoring average is going to be around. So if a JJ Spawn can just have an average or better round, he could cover for us. We could look at Cam Young, actually. Wasn't really the first player on my radar because he's going off a little earlier, but he's also at 72. I mean, we had Goddard up in there in the shopping cart before as well. I'm not against that one at all. I just want to look at his shots gained today. There's got to be a reason why he's at 72.5, right? I mean, I don't see it. Shot +1 today. Did we make an eagle hole out or something? Like, what's the deal? You know what? Let's do this. I do want to look at Cam Young too. Cam Young could be a decent piece of value. Let's do that. But that Goddard one looks like it's pretty far off. So Cam Young today, yeah, he did lose the 1.3 on approach. Let's go with these two then. So this will be the slip that we're taking here for the live stream. Under on Matt Fitzpatrick, 71.5 strokes. Under on Chris Goddard at 72.5. We obviously spitballed a lot of other props that I'll be potentially adding to the mix. And look at that. That's how much these Underdog and PrizePicks lines makers are all over me. They just cannot get off my dick at this point. It's super annoying. They watch the live streams. They bump value live all the time. Completely ripped that one off the board, but we still do have Chris Goddard up posted. Maybe they'll post that Fitzpatrick back up there. Sometimes they rip it off and then it gets posted like a minute or two later. Just weird stuff that they have with their algorithm, I guess, if they're getting too much action on specific plays. You can see they added it back and it's now at 71 strokes. So yeah, if you guys want all the props that I'm taking, of course, those will be on my Patreon page. But yeah, if we have to kind of fix that, it'd be great if they could fix the payouts. So now that I know that they're watching, how about you fix your payouts on these bogey or worse lines? Like, unless you just plan on scamming your customers, chop, get to that lines makers. You have a job to do. But in terms of trying to find some sort of a replacement for it, totally fine with that can't lay prop that we were pointing out there. And even Cam Young at that 72, or I think my favorite, yeah, let's go back to the JJ Spawn one. It'll be this one. They have the push equity at that +1 number at that 72 mark. And then Goddard, if he shoots +1, that should just be like the field average. That's an under as well. So we'll take those for the slip on PrizePicks. Underdog side, I'm looking at that Shane Lowry under on bogeys. And by the time I get my action posted on the Patreon page, it'll probably be that prop mixed in with some sort of a fade prop. And the reason for that, of course, is, when we added in the under on strokes with Lowry, it was only 2.58x. But if rather than taking, let's say, an under on strokes with that under on bogeys on Lowry, if we made it a fade with the Lowry under on bogeys, we'd probably get over a 3x payout. So that's personally what I'm going to be looking for my Patreon members. Again, link down below to join the Patrons where you can find all my exposure as I get to it. On top of that, also the stat averages for every single round, also weather reports, and every piece of betting exposure that I'm adding. But the last thing we're going to go through will be some matchups. So we'll be touching on that here in just a minute. I do want to catch up on chat, see if there's any specific questions that you've got for me. And then we'll get this thing rocking. So let's bring up the free balls and see if you guys have anything to go through. So let's get some water, see where the last comment was from. You think you fade Molinari again? Thoughts? I could be for it, Dave. He got lucky today. He made that 25-footer on the second to last hole. So I could be about fading him. He's at 73 strokes though. So rather than the 72.5, if we got the same exact 72.5 line, I could be a little bit more for it. The reason why I probably don't fade him at 73 strokes, though, is just because of the easier scoring conditions. He's on the AM side, which is when I think the conditions will be slightly harder with that wind. But I don't know. The 73, that 0.5 bump just kind of takes away the value, I would say. Jose agrees with not feeding the trolls. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, he did get lucky for sure. I didn't see your comment on him getting lucky, but I agree with you on that. It wasn't even just that 25 footer, but I mean, he's missing pot bunkers by a yard or two all day. So I'm sure it'll come back at some point. Pendrith, a good play in Underdog. So it depends on what prop you're looking at, Illini. So let me know what sort of line that you're eyeing, and I can let you know. You did a Scotty Fitz-Lowry Rom under on strokes for 8x. So a little, what is that, 4-legger for 8x. That's actually a decent payout with that correlation there. Scotty, he's PM, Fitz PM. Same thing with Lowry and Rom. I could see that. Scotty Scheffler has the PMT time. He certainly does. He's going to nuke, isn't he, huh? He's just going to end up at -6, -7, grab the tournament by its balls. You're looking at Wyndham at 72.5. He's a 1.07x for the higher than 0.9 for the lower. He said, does Windy C shoot 73 plus again? So I would normally say yes, but I honestly think the conditions being easier doesn't really make it that much of value. Like, it's 1.07x towards the over, and I kind of agree with that. Like, I think more than likely he's going to shoot +1 or better, because that's kind of where I have the scoring average. So yeah, I think that's a pretty fair line, I would say. He said, if Shane Lowry has no multiplier on his 71.5 on Underdog, would I prefer his under on strokes or his under on bogeys? Does he have an even number over there? I didn't know if he did. No, he doesn't have that even number there. I would probably take the 71.5 without a multiplier, but unfortunately, that's not the case. They try and rob us with the rake, but if you're careful, you can still beat them. What do I like in the matchup between Aubert and Fleetwood? It's +110 for Aubert. I'd probably be on the Fleetwood side, man. I think he fits a link-style golf course a little bit better. Aubert likes to play the ball through the air. He's a high ball hitter, more of a point-and-shoot sort of score, as opposed to that creative style that plays well at links. So I would probably be looking at the Fleetwood side, and I'm guessing because it's +110 for Aubert, that Fleetwood's like -130 or like -140 juice, which in that case, I don't think there's any value there. Like, he should be the slight favorite. But if you were getting that +110 and it was on Fleetwood, I would be betting that sort of thing. So hopefully that gives you my take on that one. He said, how am I still awake? 4 coffees today. It's starting to wear off though. So after this live stream, I'll probably be going to bed pretty shortly afterwards. He said, gonna work 15 hours for the weekend, might be delirious by Sunday. Luckily, this is gonna be the worst day. Like, I'm gonna get some good sleep. I'm not gonna be waking up at 1 or anything. Like, I'm gonna let myself sleep in tonight throughout the first 4 or 5 hours of play. But yeah, today was a grind fest, but it's a major. It's easy to do. It's like injecting pure adrenaline into your veins when you have a major like this. He said, thanks again for the great analysis. Thank you for the kind comments, my dude. He said, you missed asking earlier if I don't want to answer, it's all good. When I'm using BTN, how do I use round 2 and take that into account when looking at the tournament? So you're going to have to clarify what you mean by that, because I don't really know what you're asking. He said, when I'm using BTN, how do I use round 2? And do I take into account guys that I was on going into the tournament? Yeah, you're going to have to clarify that, man. I'm still not 100% sure what you mean. It's crazy how they change it in real time at the broadcast. Yeah, it is crazy. They've been doing it for years though, man. And that's why I talk to them, because I know they're listening. I don't want to say I'm like friends with one of them. Used to be sortly friendly with one of the lines makers. And that changed when I started shit talking him, and for good reason, by the way. They were, like I said, moving lines on live streams in front of me. They were also limiting every single account that I had to $5 bets, also limiting people in my Patreon page based on tailing my action. They deservingly get the smoke from me. It's not a one-off thing. Let's put it that way. What's going on? AR says, you always appreciate my insights. Thank you for that. He said, what stats do I say about a Rosie over Bryson and Bobby Mack? And he said also Glover over Tom Kim in Vegas. So yeah, the stats on a Rosie versus Byron and Bryson, sorry, not Byron, and Bobby Mack, I like Bobby Mack at that matchup. Now, Rose is the biggest underdog. So, I mean, if you're looking for a pure underdog play, like, I'm not against Rose, especially because I think Bryson's attackable. Bryson's not a good links player. I will stand behind that for like the next 10, 15 years at this point. I don't think that he's really ever going to be a good links player. So I think that Bobby Mack, Rose are for sure the play in that first group, but I would rather have Bobby Mack. Bobby Mack's a better, at least recent form player than what you have with Rose. The odds aren't that far off. Like, I'm pretty sure the odds, at least for McIntyre round one, were like plus 180. You're probably getting close to that same thing in round two. If you're getting plus 180 on McIntyre, and let's say it's like plus 200, plus 210 on Rose, I'd rather have the McIntyre side. But I think that matchup in general is a good one to attack because of Bryson. I mean, you have to price Bryson as the favorite if you're a sports book, but at the same time, he's playing so shitty at these golf courses that I really don't think he's going to win tomorrow. And then the other one, you've got Glover versus Tom Kim in Vegas. So yeah, the one that scares me in that second one would be Tom Kim. Glover had a really good ball striking today, but he also made some putts. Glover's putter is extremely hit or miss. That scares me a little bit about playing that one, but the Tom Kim aspect too, it's worth mentioning. He had a really good putting day. He gained 5 strokes putting. That is extremely unlikely to happen again. If you've been following Tom Kim this year, you would know just how terrible he's been on the greens. However, at link style golf courses and on this type of grass, fescue, he's like a stroke and a half better than his baseline heading in. So he loves this grass for whatever reason. I mean, he's not going to gain 5 strokes per round every single day, but with that course history, it makes him a little scary to fade. But considering that kind of stat profile, I could get behind a Glover play there. Vegas, though, it's worth noting too. So maybe this is a good stay away spot, actually, because now that I think about it, Vegas actually sets up pretty well as well. He gained 2.8 strokes ball striking and lost almost 2 strokes for the short game. So, at least when I'm looking at stat profiles from round number 1 and trying to kind of take it into account for the next day, guys like Johnny Vegas are guys that I would call bounce back candidates. It's not even like he played terribly today, right? +1 was a little bit better than the average round, but this is the kind of stat profile where he kind of got nothing out of it. I mean, he hit the ball like somebody that maybe shot -1, -2, but the short game was so horrendous that he had about that field average round. So, you hit the ball like you did today, and then he's even a neutral in those short game categories. He's going to shoot that -1 rounds. And then, let alone the upside, if he gained strokes in the short game categories, then that would be that like -2, -3 or better rounds. So yeah, I would stay away from the second one. The first one, I like that Rose or McIntyre play. Even if it is Rose that you play, I like it just because I think there's an inherent value on both of them. Like, I wouldn't bet both of them, like, because there is juice involved, obviously, on all those props that you're taking. But if you wanted to sprinkle one of those two, I think it makes sense. And of course, my man, again, I appreciate the kind words. You guys don't have to do all that stuff, but I do appreciate it nonetheless. He said, last question, you asked a lot today. Never feel shy about asking questions, man. That's what these are for, right? The live content, the live questions. I think a lot of people kind of learn from the other questions that people have too. So don't be shy about it at all. And then he said, do I like Rahm and hand for the over at 11.5 greens? It's a good question. And by the way, the questions help me out too. It's worth noting that it kind of helps me think throughout the slate, right? The projections, the value available, because this is literally my first look at the slate too. I'm here on the live stream. I think it's going to go up to like 11 in the PM, maybe even slightly over an 11.5 average. Sorry, an 11 average, not 11.5. So somebody at 11.5, like a Rahm, he's PM wave and Hen. I think Hen's AM. Let me double check on Hen's tee time first. So Hen's going off earlier, but John Rahm has that 3 p.m. tee time. John Rahm at 11.5, I think, makes some sense. But look at that. Got her up, bumped on the live stream too. This is why you got to be on the Patreon page, guys, because I guess for whatever reason, the lines makers on Prize Picks are poor or something, and they can't afford my Patreon page. But these free live streams, they love to sit on it and bump stuff. But let me see what they have Rahm at. I'm assuming he's juiced over at 11.5. Yeah, so as expected, he's got that 0.86 multiplier. Who was the other one that you were looking at? You were looking at Hatton, right? So Hatton is on the harder side of things. But let's see if he has a multiplier. He's at 11.5 and he's even money. I think the even money aspect is huge because that 0.86x multiplier does a lot more harm than it does good. Well, let me see what he is on the books. Yeah, he's like even money. I mean, shit, if Hatton had like a tee time that was 3-4 hours later, I think that'd be a really, really good play. I still think it might be an okay lean, but the AM PM thing is throwing me off a little bit on that one. Bhatia over 7.5 fairways. So the average was only 6.36 today, or 6.59. Sorry, let me correct that. I think it's going to go up a bit for those PM wave players. So Bhatia will be one of the later tee times. So probably like a 7 average, maybe slightly over a 7 average. Let's go to his averages for the year. So if we go to off the tee, go to driving accuracy, we go to Akshay Bhatia. He's number 51, so slightly above the PGA Tour average. What kind of multipliers on it? If he's even money, I think it's a perfect line. Let's see. He's even money, and then what is he on Prize Picks? Also, exactly even money. I completely agree with it, and here's why. If I think the average is going to be like 7, maybe 7.25 per round in the afternoon, a guy that is slightly above the PGA Tour average, like number 51 is, would probably be right at exactly 7.5 fairways. So I think that's a good 50-50 there. If you want to take a chance on the coin flip, though, by all means. Pendrith says 72.5 strokes, juiced 1.07 towards the over. So you're looking at the over on that one. I'm not a huge fan of the fades, just like, especially at 72.5, only shooting a +1. I think it's going to be a lot easier to accomplish that. Now, what I want to check on is the tee time, is like, when is Pendrith starting? I guess we could just look it up on here. I didn't realize they had the tee times on this sheet. Where is he at? So he's going off in the afternoon. Yeah, that's not my favorite one because, he just has to have an average day to go under that. And I think it's not easy to do, but it's within his range of outcomes. How do I adjust from core plays going into the tournament? And how do I adjust for those when comparing the first round metrics? Oh, core plays for me are only for main slate, man. I mean, that's just on a DFS slate. The players that I think are mispriced, prices change from round to round. Outright prices change from day to day. That really has no bearing on what I'm doing for rounds 2 through 3. So yeah, if your question was like, how do I use those kind of designations over the whole event? They mean nothing. It's only for the main slate that I designate those for. And the core plays, by the way, are DFS core plays. So they're meant for just that market. Thanks again, Luke. Really focused on the stats and sportsbook odds for props and Underdog. Great stuff. As always, man, that's how you grind out ROI. I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's for us stat nerds, right? This isn't glamorous. This isn't sexy. Oh, the lock of the day. Oh, come over and tail these or guarantee you're going to make money. Like, yeah, you're not going to get that, right? It's much more nerdy. It's much more like, hey, the stats say this. There's a lean in one direction or the other. That's what we do around here, though. We pride ourselves on being sweaty tryhards and nerdy a little bit. Haddon plus 135 over Henley in Minwoo. So I kind of like Henley this week, but Haddon's playing some really good golf. I can't completely disagree with you there, man. I mean, look at his shots gained. I mean, his ball striking today was outrageously good. Henley also kind of sucked today. So even though I liked him heading into this week, his short game, he lost about a stroke and a half. So he only ended up shooting +1. I don't know if the plus 135 is good enough for me, man. I wouldn't bet that sort of a number. Plus 135 is just kind of like, it's just not doing it for me in a group that's as competitive as that one. But I do like Haddon in general. I think he's going to have a low round. You felt bad for Bryson swinging at the ball level with the shoulders. We call that the baseball swing, one that's teed up. It's not an easy one to hit. So understandable that he flubbed it the first time. Example of what you're saying, you said, if a player had a plus approach metrics but underperformed on that day, do I automatically target those guys expecting a bounce back? So yeah, I mean, it depends on the ownership, Damon. So for example, if they had good approach stats and they're going to be like 5% owned, then for sure, those are guys that you're going to see as a ball striking player for me. So yeah, I kind of get your question a little bit more there, and you would be correct. I don't automatically target guys as a bounce back, but if they're low owned and they're not getting that kind of steam, they are players I'll use. Thoughts on Lowry and Xander to finish top 20? You can get both at even money on your book. So let me compare like what the other books have them at first. To be frank, the live top 20 bets are not my specialty. For as much information as I try and give you guys, I try and, kind of admit some of my failures and limitations as well. I will admit that like the markets where like you're starting with strokes and then you're trying to figure out top 10, top 20 odds is just a little bit too much of a mind fuck for me to do on a live stream like this. But let's see. Lowry and Xander, we can use this as a baseline, I guess, to get an example of where it's at. They're both pretty much at that same number. So at least compared to the overall betting market, it's not drastically off with the kind of bets that you're dealing with. But let's just take a look at them with where they're starting then, because the odds aren't going to be a big factor, I guess, on that one. Lowry's starting at T20, and then where's Xander at? Right, he's a little bit further back, I thought. He's at T32. I'd rather go Xander on that one, and I know he's starting one stroke back of where Shane Lowry is, but over 3 rounds, I think Xander Schauffele is probably 1.5 strokes better. So if the odds are even on those two, I like both of them. I think both are decent plays, but I would lean towards the Xander one just a little bit more. He said, when the weather seems to favor the late tee times, do I think that brings the pressure of the cut line and bumpier greens might offset that? Maybe a little bit, Titan, but the weather being an advantage isn't ever something that I'm like going to hold against it. Like that's obviously going to limit the advantage. But like today, Titan, just to show you like an example of what I'm talking about here, I mean, that was the case today, right? It should have been bumpier. It should have been all of those factors happening in round number 1. And when we take a look at the averages, it was a 1.3 shot difference between the two waves. So it matters, but it can be overcame like you saw for today. Of course, James, example, player heading into the tournament. Yeah, so I think I answered your question on that. You're good on that. So we'll skip that comment because I think we handled it. Alani says, your last underdog slip for tomorrow is a make the cut on Scott, Vegas, Connors, and Pendrith. Let's have a day, and thanks for all I do. I like that, man. Adam Scott especially. He's a stud this week. He's playing like he's 25 years old again. Connors, good low-owned sleeper. I like the fact that he's starting to get over that injury. Yeah, no complaints from me on that one. You found a solid prop on Prize Picks. You got Xander, Birdie, better matchup versus Potty. You can pair it with an under like Scotty for 3x. Yeah, I'm not going to give you any pushback there, Bass, especially with a player like who was Xander versus Potgator. I could see that. It looks like it's a popular play too. Over 1,100 people have already used it. Apparently, we'll never lose sleep at this rate. Yeah, you guys are brutal this evening. But hey, I'd rather answer your questions than leave you hanging. I'm out of water though. It's a negative. Scotty round 2 leader at plus 350, too tempting. I think he's got a real good chance to be the leader. Plus 350, I mean, you're getting screwed on the odds. I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They're giving you that plus 350, and they probably should be giving you plus 500 or more with all the players that you have towards the top. But if Scotty shoots like -5, he's going to be your second round leader. So I could see that AR. I don't think you're getting value, but I think that there's a good chance that that happens. Is a good point. Thanks. Keep up the good work, of course, Titan. And he said Victor for the bounce back. Yeah, I sure hope he bounces back. I've got him in a lot of lineups that kind of depend on him to make the cut. Him and Fleetwood are going to be my two main sweats. His shots gained profile wasn't too far off either, so I'm okay with that one for sure. Alrighty, guys, that's all I've got for tonight, though. I'm going to cut it off here. Steven kind of reminded me. It's an hour and a half into this live stream. We did an hour and a half live stream earlier. I should probably get some sleep, but best of luck, guys, with all the exposure that you guys are getting to. Those 3 balls, by the way, I mentioned we were going to go through that. I like a lot of the ones that we mentioned to chat before. Like, what was the main one that we had on there, right? Like the Bobby Mack versus Rose and Bryson. I think the Bobby Mack side can make sense. You could go with Rose if you wanted to as well. One of those two will be like the one that we take for the stream. And I think either one makes sense. Like if you really like Rose, his course history, you could go that direction. If you want McIntyre in his form, totally can co-sign either one of those two plays. I think it's more so Bryson that we're attacking there. And then I'm not against the Haddon one at plus 135. I'm not sure I'm going to completely co-sign that one. But yeah, the one for the live stream, I'm going to see what I can get on Bobby Mack. And I can get plus 185 or better odds again. I'm going to be taking the plunge on that one. But that's all I've got, guys. Smash that like button if you guys haven't already. Also, subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. Rounds 3 and 4, we're going to have live streams coming, the same stuff that we had here. So Underdog and Prize Picks, also matchups for Saturday, Sunday. Subscribe so you guys don't miss those live streams when we go live. And, of course, check out the Patreon page for all of the extra content. That's every single slip as I'm entering it for these slates, as well as all the research tools that you saw. That's the averages. That's the different weather forecasts that I post for my members. Every single piece of prop content is posted on the Patreon. But that's all I've got, guys. Best of luck, and I'll see you guys over the weekend.